rules for this coming season. Obviously, things are drastically different, but the trade deadline moving from July 31st to August 31st. The season will begin with a 30-man roster. It'll be reduced to 26 by the end of the first month. Again, it's always been 25. It'll go from 30 to 28 to 26 in the first month of this season. The season is only 2 months. Postseason eligibility deadline will be September 15th, and there's a 60-man player pool of eligible players during the season. You've got a 40-man roster, same rules, but a 20-player taxi squad since you basically don't have an active minor league system in place. John Heyman, first thing I'd be doing if I was with a club is like, okay, so we have 30 men at the start. How do we use that? How do we game that system? And you know teams are doing that. Yeah. How do we use that to our advantage? Is that going to be something teams do?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think most of those extra 5 players are going to be pitchers, I would think. I mean, Garrett Cole threw 5 innings yesterday in a simulated game, and Ronnie says that these supermen can do it. That maybe DeGrom, Cole, Scherzer, a few guys can do that, but they're going to be mostly limited to 4 innings to 5 innings to start, and then go from there for the most part. So I think you need extra pitchers, and those teams that have that depth in the rotation and in the bullpen are going to be a major advantage. And 2 of them are very good teams, the Rays and the A's. I think they have spectacularly deep
and they
pitching
love
staffs.
doing that, right? So do you think everybody just stacks pitchers on there and then you have arms to throw the first 2 weeks?
I think if you want to be real conservative, that's what you'll do, is you'll stick to kind of the program of having as much pitching as you can. I think the teams that kind of think outside the box are the ones I'm going to be interested in watching. Does someone have a Billy Hamilton type player on their bench just in case extra innings or something to do late? Do you decide, National League teams now with the DH, you're not going to go to the bench for pinch hitting. You look at certain lineups now, you're not going to pinch hit for anyone if you look at it. Yeah. So why have that many players on the bench that you're not going to use? Or have guys on the bench, you have a defensive expert that can go in and really help you late in innings if you're a defensively challenged team in the outfield or infield. Speed, again, like I said before. Maybe two-way players. We talked about Ohtani. But do you have some pitchers that can pitch in a game, but also if you had to, you could put him in the outfield for an inning.
Michael Lorenzen of the Reds,
there you
that
go.
sort of thing. But now you already threw out there's like, American League Baseball's just not as good.
That's not what I said.
That's what I took in.
Well, listen, you're biased. You have to see someone about that. But no, American League Baseball is amazing. I'm just saying that in the National League, where you have to double switch and hit for the pitcher, you have to have bodies to hit for the pitcher.
And it sounds interesting, Ronnie. I'm saying that's eliminated. Where back in your, let me just throw it back in your day.
I can't even remember.
It was like Rusty Staub, Lee Lacy. Everybody had to have a bat, right? That's the way baseball was played. And now it's like no. And now with universal DH, well, you won't have to have that extra bat or. To your point of gaining a competitive advantage, instead of stacking bullpen guys, get a big hitter off the bench in a leverage situation. Right. But American League Baseball, you don't really need that.
Well, you are going to need it. It depends on the makeup of your team. But the stronger teams, who are you going to hit for in the Yankee lineup? Somebody?
Right.
But you might be right with the speed thing, though. The Yankees have even talked about Tyler Wade, the speedster. You might be able to use a guy like that, especially in the late innings, to steal a game. And even if you go to this extra innings where they're starting to run around second base, you put a speedster on there, maybe he steals third. You don't have to try and move him over, or you win the game that way. So I think the speed thing is going to be.
And for 30, yes, but then it'll be 28, and by the time you get to the stretch run, again, the season is only 2 months, but the stretch, you'll be down to 26. There's fewer variables to play with it. If it was 30 all season, no question.
But isn't that the unique part? Is that this is the first time we'll see the shrinking of the roster. That a manager will have more weapons when he starts the season than he will at the end of the season. That's going to really have an effect.
So you want to see a manager be hyper-aggressive early in pulling players. I said this yesterday, Ronnie. If you have a starting pitcher that gives up a 5 spot, you've failed. Early in the season. You cannot allow that to happen.
I totally agree. Hyper-aggressive. Here's another way to look at being hyper-aggressive. 2 names, guys that pitch extended innings. Hader and maybe Lugo, left-hander, right-hander. You always pitch them when you get the lead and they close the game out. Why don't you pitch them when you're down 1? Why don't you pitch them when it's even? Give them the opportunity to be on the field, to keep you close, to have your team rally, as opposed to always having to pitch them when they have the lead.
That was 1960s baseball. Right. Lindy McDaniel will come on. Look at all these
Lindy
names that have been in quarantine so long.
With the fork.
John remembers that.
Forkball. I am going to miss
4 or
that
5
National
innings.
League strategy, though. There is an element of strategy that we're going to
Come on, yes, of course you will. Look, but I understand. Look, I'm down with it this year. I'm going to stop complaining about it. It is fascinating. Is there room to try to, like, is it worth it, as Ron mentioned, that you will have a man on second base in extra innings? Is it worth it to try to tailor your team to that, or can you not worry about that at that point?
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about that. At 30 players, you get the luxury. I mean, you don't need 5 extra pitchers. You know, you may have fewer. Obviously, Billy Hamilton, he mentioned, got a good chance to make the Giants now for the reasons that the two gentlemen here were talking about. So, yeah, I mean, there'll be some specialists out there. I think that you can do that, but I'm conservative. I'm not outside the box. I'm sticking with the pitchers.
Is there an opportunity here as well for a prospect to come up? Again, no minor leagues. Is there an opportunity? Is there anybody good enough that you think that we're going to be seeing that will make an impact down, in this short season, that a guy who would normally just be in Double-A?
I don't know if it's going to be any different. I still think you got to be good enough to be there to help. But I do think maybe young arms in the bullpen down the stretch. You're going to see maybe a guy going all the way back to K-Rod coming up and making a difference. I think you might see more of that. Maybe Kopech, the guy from the White Sox.
I think it depends on COVID health and injuries. Let's say that you're in a situation that the Nationals were a couple of seasons ago, and they had to bring up a young 19-year-old left fielder. They brought up Juan Soto, and he's going to be here for a long time. You take it back to 2006. Adam Wainwright comes up, and he has the postseason of his life, and was the difference really for the Cardinals winning the World Series. I think that if the Rays are close, you're going to see Nate Pearson. I think if the Padres are close, you're going to see Mackenzie Gore. Yes, I think you will see some of the prospects if they're there.
Yeah, I keep an eye on the Padres because there's pressure to win. They have a decent team. They could certainly get in the playoffs in a 60-game season, maybe even more, but they certainly can on 60, and they have those types of prospects. They've got Patino and Gore, two of the best pitching prospects in the game. I think pitchers may be rushed a little bit more than hitters, but they also have Taylor Trammell, a great outfielder. They got a lot of prospects, and I wouldn't be shocked to see several of them.
The tough part is these guys have no place to play, right? I mean, so it's based on everything you're seeing now and then just when they're working out. So you don't have a whole lot of stuff to judge from in terms of whether this guy's ready or not.
Right. Correct me if I'm wrong. There's really no way to exploit that taxi squad. That's just a pool of players that are eligible to play, but there's no way of, I mean, you have a 40-man roster, so we don't expect, I don't want to use shenanigans again, but there's no way of utilizing that in a hyper-efficient world or doing something like that.
People can figure it out. I mean, I'm inside the box. Maybe Ronnie can figure it out, but it's possible. I think it's possible to figure that out, but I think we're going to see a lot of outside-the-box thinking in terms of the right teams, the right prospects coming up. We're going to see some great prospects.
I think it's roster talent. If you're a team, are you looking for that catcher, primarily a catcher, who can play other positions? Because that gives you almost 4 players now.